Young Frankenstein, a comedy horror classic from the 1970s, continues to enthrall viewers to this day. In a recent interview, Teri Garr, who played the legendary Inga, revealed some behind-the-scene details before she passed away. After much anticipation, Garr finally reveals an intriguing detail about the film that the majority of fans were unaware of. Gene Wilder's superb turn as Young Frankenstein and Mel Brooks's brilliant direction have made the film an audience favorite. If Garr did reveal anything, what was it? How significant was her part in the making of a cultural icon and comedy classic? Let's take a look at the beginning of the spark between two stars in Young Frankenstein, which Teri Garr eventually explained, but most fans never understood. Teri Garr captivated the audience, and Gene Wilder was just brilliant. These two things are beyond dispute. That there was a 1,000-star spark between the two co-stars is, of course, not surprising. Teri Garr shared something about Young Frankenstein that most fans never knew until she passed away. When she was a young actress in the 1970s, Teri Garr was one of many who were fighting for little roles in Hollywood films and TV shows. When Gene Wilder, a comedic superstar, laid eyes on her, everything changed. She convinced Mel Brooks to cast the underappreciated Garr as Inga. So far, Garr's appearance had been the main factor in her casting. Everything for Garr was altered by Wilder's intervention. Not all actors are equal. Some even set the screen on fire. An indescribable electric charge washed over Young Frankenstein as Teri Garr and Gene Wilder entered the frame side by side. There was an ideal amount of anarchy, warmth, and pure, unadulterated chemistry. It was there in the opening scenes, that ideal comic tension, whereby Wilder's simmering quirkiness met Garr's cheerful exuberance. The tempo was perfect, whether Inga was fluttering her eyelashes or Dr. Frankenstein was releasing one of his trademark rants. Even while improvising, their dance moves landed precisely where they should have, making them look like the screwball sets Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. The ease with which Teri Garr interacted with Gene Wilder was a topic she frequently brought up. She once compared him to a balloon with too much helium, and I got to be the one holding the string. With his untamed passion, Wilder teetered precariously between genius and breakdown in every moment, while Garr's grounded intuitive energy provided a nice counterpoint. As a team, they transformed chaos into synchronicity and tension into time. Gene Wilder was really helpful when filming scenes. His attention extended beyond his amusement. He desired that each individual shine. He urged Garr to let go, improvise, and discover more about her character than what was written down. She accomplished it. The scene where the roll in the hay becomes famous, it was just a combination of working together, riffing and gut feelings that led to that. A spark ignited by the shared imagination of Wilder and Garr, as well as the script. They were also very much in love with the classic Hollywood comedy approach, the heightened and tragically human characters, the rapid-fire conversation, and the dramatic timing. Their scenes had an almost vintage quality to them because of their mutual admiration. Teri Garr and Gene Wilder had a mutually respectful working relationship away from the camera. The way Wilder could go from profound introspection to exploding with humor in the blink of an eye was something Garr loved in his creative discipline. She often remarked that one of the most sensitive and intelligent minds she had ever collaborated with lay behind those untamed curls and googly eyes. He wasn't showy or overbearing, but his attention was palpable, she remarked in an interview. He was concerned about the story, the actors and the crew doing a good job, but he would never let that concern overshadow his enthusiasm. Wilder, on the other hand, gushed about Garr, saying that he could steal the show without ever grabbing the spotlight. He complimented her innate talent, timing and vulnerability, as well as her instincts and timing in general. An actress who, in an industry obsessed with one-liners, understood the need of nuance. Garr quietly honored her late co-star Gene Wilder after his death in 2016, even though she rarely appeared in public due to her health. The remarks she did provide were full of grace and recall. He was clever, charming, and easy to be around. I'm lucky to have worked with him and even luckier to have laughed with him. After filming on Young Frankenstein ended, and as his divorce from shoots was in the process of being finalized, Wilder began dating Garr. The romance lasted only a few months, but Garr and Wilder remained on friendly terms after going their separate ways, with Garr later commenting, "We dated for a while and he was as nice of a guy in real life as he was on screen." Wilder confirmed that he and Garr were good pals after the split. Their connection didn't need to be loud or flashy. It was in the glance, the hesitation before a punchline, the way their characters played tug-of-war with logic and lunacy. The story is that the Young Frankenstein brought the missing pieces together in Garr's acting, elevating her to a whole new level. All thanks to Gene Wilder's attraction to her. He even went as far as saying that he didn't care about her acting skills. Mel Brooks recalls asking Wilder, "But can she act?" To which Wilder waved him off. Brooks later revealed that Wilder was absolutely crazy about her. So who is exactly Teri Garr, and how did her journey get to the Young Frankenstein? Let's delve into that. Teri Garr's early life and road to Hollywood. Before Teri Garr was a beloved comedic force, before she met Gene Wilder and went on to lit up the screen as Inga in Young Frankenstein, she was just a girl from Lakewood, Ohio, humming to the usual tune of old Hollywood dreams. Her journey to stardom didn't come with fireworks or overnight fame. It came with grit, rhythm, and an unshakable belief that she was meant to be part of the magic she saw flickering across black and white movie screens as a child. Teri Garr was born on December 11, 1944 in Lakewood, Ohio, a quiet town far from the bright lights of Tinseltown, but her world was anything but ordinary. Her father, Eddie Garr, was a vaudeville performer and radio personality with a knack for timing and character work. Her mother, Phyllis, was a vibrant wardrobe stylist and former dancer with the Rockettes. Together, they filled the Garr household with story, style, and the kind of theatrical flair that made show business seem like the family trade. When Teri Garr was a young girl, the family moved to Los Angeles after Eddie passed away unexpectedly. It was a seismic shift, but one that would place her closer to the world she already adored. Hollywood wasn't just a fantasy for her, it was a direction, a calling. The stars she saw on screen weren't distant figures, they were guides. She grew up surrounded by remnants of classic cinema, dressing rooms, stage lights, and stories of a bygone entertainment era. Movie musicals became her obsession. She'd watch them wide-eyed, memorizing routines, mouthing lines, soaking in every technicolor detail. Her heart was already in the spotlight. She just needed to earn her place in it. Determined to follow in her mother's dancing footsteps, Teri Garr enrolled at North Hollywood High School, where she trained in ballet and honed her skills with the kind of discipline you'd expect from someone fully focused on a dream. After graduation, she took her training further, studying acting at UCLA and later at the prestigious Actors Studio. But Hollywood wasn't handing out favors. Garr's early years were filled with rejection. Casting agents saw her as another pretty dancer, another girl in a lineup of hopefuls. She was told no more often than not. But rejection didn't dull her shine, it sharpened it. She developed a thick skin and a quicker wit, channeling every brush off into a determination to prove herself. She started off with blinks and you'll miss them dance roles in Elvis Presley films like Viva Las Vegas. She twirled in the background, never speaking, never stealing focus. But behind the scenes, she was absorbing everything. The staging, the timing, the way stars carried themselves. Those background roles soon led to small TV appearances, guest spots on shows like Star Trek, where she played a secretary from the future, and Batman. Each part was another brick in the path she was paving. Then, slowly but surely, her comic timing started to catch attention. A turning point came when she crossed paths with Mel Brooks. Garr had a few connections in the comedy world, but it was her audition for Young Frankenstein that marked a seismic shift. Her German-accented improvisation during the audition caught Brooks off guard and caught Gene Wilder's eye. It was the moment when all those years of training, background dancing, and rejection turned into something else. Opportunity. Young Frankenstein would be her breakout. But it wasn't the beginning of her talent. It was simply the moment the world finally caught up to what she'd always known. She wasn't just a girl who danced in the background. She was meant to lead. So how was she able to wrap up her role in Young Frankenstein with so many hopeful actors vying for the same opportunity? Let's find out. The ridiculous Gene Wilder and the ingenious Mel Brooks. Sometimes the perfect role finds the perfect actor. It just requires a thick German accent and a whole lot of guts. Teri Garr's journey to becoming Inga in Young Frankenstein is the kind of story that belongs in a movie of its own. Funny, unexpected, and a little bit daring. In a film filled with unforgettable performances, her shines with a natural ease that belies the wild and wonderfully unpredictable road that led her to it. Teri Garr revealed that the story of Young Frankenstein started as many great comedies do, with Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks bouncing ridiculous ideas off each other. Wilder had the spark of an idea. What if Dr. Frankenstein's grandson tried to live down the family shame only to end up repeating it all? Brooks, already known for Blazing Saddles, saw the comedic gold and agreed to direct, with Wilder co-writing the screenplay. Together, they envisioned a loving satire of classic Universal horror films. But they needed a cast that could pull off the very specific blend of elegance, absurdity, and vintage charm. And here's where the search for Inga began. The role of the doctor's wide-eyed, blonde assistant needed just the right actor. Someone who could be funny without trying too hard, sexy without cliché, and subtly smart without sticking out. Many actresses auditioned, but none quite hit the mark, until Teri Garr walked in. At the time, Garr wasn't a household name. She'd done background work, danced in Elvis films, and had a few solid guest spots on TV, but she was still waiting for the role. The one that would let her unleash her full comedic potential. When she got her hands on the Young Frankenstein script, she had an idea that was either genius or totally unhinged. She would audition with a hilariously exaggerated German accent, even though it wasn't in the script. She walked into the room, turned up the Teutonic charm, and delivered her lines with such sweet ridiculousness that even Mel Brooks had to pause. At first, he wasn't sure wondering how to gauge the accent, but Gene Wilder got it immediately. He saw the spark, the sly wit, under the pigtails and vows stretched into oblivion. He championed Garr for the role. Inga, as he saw her, wasn't just a comic accessory. She was the heart of the movie's humor. And Teri Garr was Inga Brooks, ever the perfectionist, gave in to Wilder's instincts. And thank goodness he did. Once Garr threw herself into the part with gleeful abandon. She didn't see Inga as a stereotypical dumb blonde. She saw her as an optimist, a dreamer, and someone who enjoyed every single ridiculous moment she was living in. She wasn't stupid, Garr once explained. She was just happy, and that's powerful in comedy. Her physicality in the role became a signature. Whether bouncing in the hay cart, bounding down cobblestone steps in heels, or wide-eyed with delight at yet another mad scientist's development, Garr's instincts never missed a beat. She knew when to lean into the joke and when to hold back. And most importantly, she knew how to let her co-stars shine, especially Gene Wilder. Their chemistry was unforced, a perfect counterbalance to Wilder's manic genius. Garr brought levity and softness to scenes that might have otherwise felt frantic. She often credited their dynamic to a shared sense of humor rooted in old Hollywood classics. The kind of stylized, rapid-fire repartee that didn't rely on punchlines alone, but on rhythm and nuance. Looking back in interviews, Garr described the making of Young Frankenstein as lightning in a bottle. She knew even then that something rare was happening on set. We were all laughing all the time, but we were also working, and we knew we were doing something different. She talked about how unusual it was to feel such freedom as a young actress, to improvise, to explore, to be funny on her own terms. Brooks gave his actors room to experiment, and Garr took full advantage, creating a character that has lived on for decades. Inga wasn't just a supporting role, she was a comedic blueprint brought to life by an actress who refused to play it safe. Teri Garr hijacked her role with charm, brains, and impeccable timing, proving that sometimes all it takes is a silly accent and a little courage to make movie magic. The heartbeats of young Frankenstein in a film full of lightning bolts, groaning monsters, and outrageous one-liners. It's easy to overlook the quiet brilliance of Inga unless you're paying attention. And audiences did, with her braided blonde pigtails, heavy German accent, and flirtatious grin. Inga may have seemed like a classic comedic sidekick, but thanks to Teri Garr's dazzling performance, she became so much more. The emotional anchor, the unexpected intellect, and the heartbeat of Young Frankenstein. If there's one moment that perfectly captures the magic of Inga, it's the legendary roll, roll, roll in the hay scene. What begins as a scenic wagon ride through the countryside quickly descends into absurdity, with Garr flopping around in the back of a hay cart like a slapstick ballerina. Her physical comedy was impeccable, controlled chaos with a wink, but Garr's performance wasn't just built on pratfalls and pigtails. In the quieter scenes, particularly when Frederick's descent into mad science begins to spiral, Inga remains a steadying force. She believes in him, supports him, and plays along with his neuroses with just enough restraint to keep it from tipping over the edge. One underrated element of Garr's genius was how she never tried to upstage the madness around her. Instead, she balanced it. When Gene Wilder erupted into a manic tirade, Garr responded with gentle, amused confusion. When Feldman delivered a scene-stealing eye roll, she matched it with a side eye of her own. Every moment she was on screen, she was making the scene better. But she was never alone. Some films are memorable because of a brilliant script, others because of a visionary director. But Young Frankenstein, it was a mix of everything, a perfect storm of genius writing, daring direction, and a cast so weirdly wonderful, they seemed like they were stitched together in the same mad laboratory. Each actor wasn't just playing a role, they were embodying a fully realized world, riffing off one another with effortless synchronicity. And at the heart of it all was an atmosphere of collaboration, creativity, and quite often complete chaos in the best way possible. It's impossible to imagine Young Frankenstein without Peter Boyle's monster, a towering, groaning, ballet-dancing creation whose eyes revealed more emotion than a dozen monologues. Boyle gave the creature unexpected depth, moving between primal rage and childlike wonder with astonishing grace. Who else could make a scene involving fire and violin music so touching and so funny? Then there was Marty Feldman as Igor. With his wild eyes and unpredictable timing, Feldman turned every line and even every silence into a laugh. Whether he was shifting his hump to the other shoulder or improvising snappy comebacks, Feldman brought anarchy energy to the film. No one broke the fourth wall like he did, and somehow it worked every time. Floris Leachman as Frau Blucher was a masterclass in deadpan menace. She turned the spooky housekeeper into a character so iconic, even the sound of her name could send audiences into fits of laughter. Leachman's comedic control was so sharp that even the cast struggled not to break during her scenes. And of course, the legendary Madeleine Kahn as Elizabeth, hilariously high-strung, melodramatic, and seductive in the most absurd way. Her line delivery was so precise it felt like poetry laced with dynamite. Taffeta Darling is still quoted decades later. Teri Garr often spoke with admiration and affection about her fellow cast members. Each brought a completely different energy to the set, and somehow Mel Brooks made it all blend like the perfect comedic stew. She called Madeleine Kahn a powerhouse wrapped in pearls, admiring the way Kahn could drop a comedic bomb with the lightest of touches, indicating that there was no rivalry between the two female leads, just mutual respect. When Madeleine walked into a room, Garr once said, "You had to be on your game," and I love that. The atmosphere Mel Brooks cultivated was one of creative freedom. He welcomed improvisation and encouraged collaboration. If a joke worked, it stayed. If a new idea popped up on set, cameras would roll. That freedom allowed each actor to push their performance to the edge and leap joyfully over it. Behind the scenes, Young Frankenstein felt more like summer camp than a studio production. There were rehearsals full of laughter, bloopers that had everyone doubled over, and a shared feeling that they were part of something magical. Everyone was invested, not just in their own performance, but in each other's. When someone nailed a line, the room erupted. When someone flopped a take, it turned into another joke. Garr often described the set as the most fun I ever had making a movie, a sentiment echoed by nearly every cast member in the decades since. There was a genuine camaraderie that transcended the screen. That's why Young Frankenstein works so well, not just because of what's in the script, but because of the chemistry that oozed between the lines. It wasn't just a film. It was a family of eccentrics making comedy history, one glorious mispronunciation and thunderclap at a time, lightning in a laboratory. When Young Frankenstein hit theaters in December 1974, it wasn't just a movie, it was a phenomenon. Audiences didn't walk out of theaters simply entertained, they walked out Enchanted. Mel Brooks had taken the bones of 1930 horror classics and reanimated them into something fresh, hilarious and unforgettable. The result? Lightning in a bottle. Or perhaps more fittingly, lightning in a laboratory. From the moment it premiered, Young Frankenstein was a smash. It earned over $86 million, 0 cents, at the box office, a staggering sum for a black and white film in the age of Technicolor spectacles. Critics, often a tough crowd when it comes to parodies, were almost universally delighted. Roger Ebert praised the film as highlighting Brooks' genius for marrying past and present. The New York Times called it a loving salute to a bygone era of filmmaking, noting the razor-sharp performances and visual authenticity. For Teri Garr, the response was surreal. She'd poured her heart into Inga accents, physical comedy and all, but had no idea just how beloved her performance would become. In interviews years later, she recalled how stunned she was by the fan mail and the instant cult status. "I didn't know high wagons and German accents could make you famous overnight," she once quipped. But they did. While the Academy didn't often reward comedies, especially ones that leaned into slapstick, Young Frankenstein still broke through. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound. The BAFTAs and Golden Globes followed suit with multiple nominations. Recognizing the film's brilliance in writing and performance, Teri Garr's career unsurprisingly took off like a rocket. Casting directors now saw her not just as a pretty face or a quirky guest star, but as a comedic force. Her phone started ringing with offers for more significant and diverse roles. Young Frankenstein didn't just open doors for Garr, it flung them wide open. What started as a parody quickly became a classic in its own right. Young Frankenstein didn't fade with time, it multiplied. It became an annual tradition for many families and film buffs, especially around Halloween, where its spooky charm and playful scares felt right at home. The film's quotes, "Put the candle back and what knockers," entered the pop culture lexicon. Merchandise flooded the shelves, t-shirts, mugs, posters, even action figures. In 2007, Mel Brooks reanimated the film yet again, transforming it into a Broadway musical, a campy, toe-tapping tribute that introduced the story to a whole new generation. Fan conventions regularly celebrate the film with panels, screenings, and tributes. And through it all, Teri Garr remains a fan favorite. Cosplayers dress as Inga, fans quote her lines, "She's not just remembered, she's adored." The film had unexpectedly opened plenty of doors. Teri Garr's career after Young Frankenstein. The years that followed Young Frankenstein became a showcase for her versatility, wit, and depth. While some actors fade into the glow of a single iconic role, Garr stepped forward, dancing gracefully between drama, satire, and domestic comedy, always with a twinkle in her eye and a line ready to steal the scene. If Young Frankenstein cracked open the door, Close Encounters of the Third Kind blew it off the hinges. In Steven Spielberg's 1977 CI5 masterpiece, Garr took a sharp turn from comedy and grounded the film's early scenes as Ronnie Neary, the bewildered wife of Richard Dreyfuss's character. Though the role was smaller, her performance added a critical emotional layer to the film's domestic stakes, showing she could carry weightier material with ease. Then came Tootsie in 1982, and with it, a performance that earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. As Sandra Lester, Garr was all vulnerability and verve, a struggling actress with a big heart, an explosive temper, and razor-sharp comedic instincts. In a film filled with powerhouse performances, she carved out a space that was both hilarious and heartbreakingly human. The hits kept coming. In Mr. Mom in 1983 played Caroline, a working mother navigating corporate life while Michael Keaton tackled stay-at-home dad duties. The film was a reversal of roles, but Garr's character never became a caricature. She was smart, composed, and relatable. Let It Ride followed in 1989, a quirky comedy where Garr's understated cool helped balance the absurdity of Richard Dreyfuss's gambling escapades. Whether she was holding her own in a male-dominated ensemble or anchoring emotional attention in the middle of chaos, Garr's comic timing and dramatic precision made her one of the most adaptable actresses of her era. She was the kind of performer who made it look effortless, even when the scripts asked for gymnastics, emotional or otherwise. If film was Garr's playground, television became her home turf. She was a frequent guest on Late Night with David Letterman, where she and Letterman developed a flirtatious off-kilter rapport that became a highlight of the show's early years. Audiences adored their banter, and Garr's spontaneous wit made her a perfect foil for Letterman's dry delivery. No cue cards, no safety net, just pure, unpredictable chemistry. She also stepped behind the host desk herself, taking the reins on Saturday Night Live and proving that her comedic prowess could command a live audience. In an era when female hosts were still a rarity, held her own with poise and punchlines, leading sketches with the same mysterious charm that made Inga unforgettable. TV also brought her accolades. Garr earned an Emmy nomination for her recurring role on Friends, where she played Phoebe's eccentric estranged mother, a character as delightfully weird as could make her. It was a testament to her longevity and relevance, endearing her to a new generation of fans who had never seen her in black and white. In 2002, Garr publicly revealed that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was a moment that could have signaled retreat. Instead, Garr leaned into visibility with her signature candor and courage. She didn't hide, she advocated. She became a spokesperson for MS awareness, using her platform to speak honestly about her condition, its frustrations, its unpredictability, and her determination not to let it define her. Her willingness to be vulnerable, once again, became a source of strength. She appeared on Larry King Live, The View, and in public service announcements, offering not just awareness but hope to those facing similar battles. Despite her health challenges, Garr never disappeared. She continued to appear in interviews, retrospectives, and conventions, often bringing laughter even as her body grew less cooperative. Her resilience inspired both fans and fellow performers alike. And for many women in comedy, Garr's performance was a lighthouse. She showed that female characters in broad comedy could be sexy and smart, silly and sweet all at once. You can trace her influence through decades of actresses who followed. From the quirky intelligence of Julia Louis-Dreyfus to the wry charm of Tina Fey. In later interviews, Garr's co-stars reflected on the bond they shared. Marty Feldman described her as the calm in our storm of insanity, while Cloris Leachman joked that Garr got away with being sweet and funny while the rest of us just looked insane. Comedians and directors who came of age in the 80s and 90s regularly cite Garr as an inspiration. Her blend of physical comedy and subtle wit laid groundwork that would inform sitcoms, sketch shows, and film comedies for decades. Teri Garr's role in Young Frankenstein was iconic, but it was just one thread in a vibrant tapestry. Her career was rich with standout performances. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out another interesting video by clicking on the video shown on your screen. See you on the other side.